Now, reading of excerpts from the resolution, Sister Mary Pendergast, RSM, Sister of Mercy, and Patricia J. Fonte.
Well, we need a third reconstruction to revive our political commitment to moral laws and policies that can heal and transform this nation. The resolution is to fully address poverty and low wages from the bottom up. Whereas there are over 140 million people who are poor, low wealth, or just one emergency away from economic ruin in the United States. Whereas the injustice of poverty and low wealth is deeply intertwined with the injustices of systemic racism, the denial of health care, ecological devastation, militarism, and the distorted moral narrative of religious nationalism that seeks to blame the poor instead of addressing the systems that cause poverty. Whereas there are devastating consequences to these injustices that include 250,000 people who die every year due to poverty and inequality alone. Whereas our entire society suffers when over 40% of the country cannot fulfill their potential or fully participate in society. Whereas these widespread conditions cannot be explained by blaming individual behaviors, nor are they inherent to our economy, or our society, but rather they are created and sustained by unjust and immoral laws, policies, systems, and structures. Whereas we need to resolve and pass moral and just laws and policies that fully address these interlocking systems that have only deepened during COVID-19. Thank you.
So Mary has listed from the resolution many of the whereases that describe the conditions that are causing the problems poor people face. I've decided to choose the other half of the resolution, which begins that Congress resolves that. Now, all of us have experience of making resolutions, and we know what happens to those New Year's resolutions, and we know what happened to those resolutions we make at the time of our different religious holidays like Lent in the Christian tradition. So I'm going to just read briefly these 10 or 11 resolutions that Congress will be making when it passes this third Reconstruction resolution. Remember, they're resolving to do these things. They're promising to do these things. It's going to be our job over the next year or two to keep reminding them, but you promised. So here they are. Congress resolves to prioritize and center the needs of the 140 million in laws and legislation. Yes. Congress promises to expand and protect the right to vote. Yes. Yes. Congress promises to complement existing efforts and legislation to eliminate persistent racial inequities in education, healthcare, housing, jobs, wages, Social Security and veterans benefits, land ownership, financial assistance, food security, voting rights, and the justice system. Yes. Congress resolves to protect the constitutional rights of assembly and free speech. Congress promises to enact comprehensive and just immigration reform. Promise. Congress resolves to ensure all the rights of Native and Indigenous peoples and tribal nations. Yeah. Congress promises to embrace a bold agenda to transform the economy away from climate chaos to a green, renewable energy economy. Congress promises to demilitarize the United States foreign policy, its borders, and policing. Okay, a few more. Congress resolves to enact fair taxes on corporations, Wall Street, and the wealthy. Congress promises, alongside cuts to the Pentagon budget and fair taxation, to use deficit spending to meet these pressing needs. And finally, Congress resolves to encourage states and cities to enact the policies that follow the direction provided by this resolution. So let's remember what we say to ourselves when we start to break that New Year's resolution, when we start to break that Lenten or Yom Kippur, sorry, I didn't know the holiday that has to do with resolving that you're going to be better in the next year. We say to ourselves, but you promised, you resolved. Then we must be prepared to say to our legislators, but you resolved, but you promised. Do it.
Thank you, Mary. Thank you, Pat.